Well, my name is Abbie Moostoos, but I changed it to Abbie Moostoos. I'm known as Abbie Moostoos. I was born in James Smith, 1947, December 16th. I grew up with my mom and dad, 5 brothers, 4 sisters. We dwindled down to 3 brothers and 2 sisters. As far as I can remember back when I was growing up, we lived in a two-room log cabin, no power, no running water. So we had to live, at night we'd live under a coal oil lamp. And during the day, the only heat we had was a wood stove, cooking stove and a heater, where we had to go out and cut wood, saw it up to fit the size of the stove, and for water we lived down up the hill from what was known as Dogtown, and we had to haul it by pail, sometimes by stone boot and barrel. That was our water. And as toilet wise, we had an outhouse, so that was used all year round, living with no power, no running water. Well, I graduated from residential school at grade 8. I was 16, but I couldn't come back. Well, I came back home, but I couldn't go back to. Well, I had to go to school in Saskatoon. That's where I was sent to. I had no choice of where to go to high school after that. But I went to school in Saskatoon for 3 years. Then I moved back. There was no changes, no.
Okay.
Well, there may have been power, because you can see the wiring on these log houses, and you can see them, they weren't in the walls. And I don't think there was no running water yet back then, but there was power. An old couple had their first TV. They were Abel McLeod, and just about everybody went there Sunday nights to go and watch TV. Favorite show was Bonanza back then. They'd always squeeze into their living room, and after the movie, we'd all head home in the dark. So that was still TV back then. I didn't know when the power first came in, but as soon as the power came in, that old couple purchased their TV. You know, just radio, just transistor radios, no power radios, transistor radios. Some had radios that had antenna, but they were still transistor. Yeah. I was about 6, 7 years old. Well, not too much. It's pretty well the way I grew up. Like my first, before I went to residential school, my first school was that big red one-room building that was up north. It was like everybody went to school in there. I remember my first day at school there, I was crying for my big brother and sister. So my mom bundled me up nice and warm, and I went to school with them. It was in winter time. We had to walk 1 mile to school that winter.
Wow.
Yep. My first day of school. Then shortly after that, that summer, my parents went to town and bought us new clothes. We wondered why. Then next day, they put out our new clothes and took us to town. And there was a bus, an STC bus, waiting for us there. And here, we didn't know where we were going, but apparently we were heading to a residential school. No, well, just the summertime. And Christmas holidays I spent in Hudson Bay, traveling my dad's trap line. Well, we stayed in a 2-room log cabin, my dad's trap line. We lived along this river called the Toscan River. And my dad, I don't know which direction he went. He either went upriver or downriver. And my grandpa, I didn't know which way he went either. I'm pretty sure he went downstream, and my dad went upstream. I've never seen him all day. I've never seen him at night. I'd be sleeping when they got back at night. I'd be sleeping when they went out at night, in the morning. But all I seen was my mom skinning squirrels and beaver. So that was life. Well, not really. Everything was pretty well the same every day, in and out. But some foods I don't eat anymore. Like I eat that like too much, like cream of wheat. I can't eat that anymore. And sometimes we'd have burnt porridge. Like it's been how many years ago now, and in my mind I can still like taste that burnt porridge. And there was a dessert we called frog eyes. I don't know what kind of fruit that was, what kind of dessert. It was a dessert there. We called it frog eyes, so I don't know what that was. So, but most of the food was same day in and day out. I got out of high school. I came back from residential school, and 2 years I spent like my first job, I guess, was firefighting. I done that for so many years. In 1967, 2 years after I got back from residential school at age 19, I got married at age 19. Then we lived with my parents. They had a new house by then. They had power by then too. So we lived with them for a year. We had one little girl. Then after that I started going out working different parts of the province, different jobs. My first one was Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, Regina, Swift Current, all over working, taking my little family all over the place. Well, Saskatoon was prefab housing, Regina was prefab housing, and Swift Current was I worked in a pharmacy garage, and west of Regina was a Métis farm, so I worked there for a while. Then Hudson Bay, used to work in the bush sawmills, and culling and peeling pulp. Well, back in when residential school days, our residential school was at Gordon's Reserve back then, and it was then that they brought in like the people of Gordon's that we had powwows there. They had powwow dancers. So our principal started us at the school, starting dance powwow, and the people on reserve would bring their regalia to the school, and they loaned us in so we can start dancing powwow. Well, we went through 2 principals. The first one wasn't too, I don't know, good, but the second one was more Christian, I guess. Well, that's just the same clothes we have on today. Like we went to when I went to residential school with new clothes, I came out with different clothes. Like the school brought us clothes to come home with, but it was like they were blue jeans and shirts just like today. Jackets were the same as today. Everything was pretty well the same. Our elders used to say that they couldn't have any cultural happenings, where Like back then there was an Indian agent that lived on reserve, and he monitored the people, and our elders couldn't have a gathering like band meetings or a powwow or anything like that where the Indian agent could see. So they'd go out in the bush and have their gatherings there, and powwows and sweats and all that. Well, our powwows didn't start till after, let's see, like I said, I don't remember dates or how far, but we did have our first powwow was during a sports day, and I think my dad was involved, and Edward Burns, they were in council back then. It's quite a while ago, and they had to go to Gordon's to go and get people to come and powwow and dance, because we didn't have any dancers around here. So they had them to come out here to do our powwow, and that was our first powwow around here. And after a few years, we built. The powwow arbor was right on the sports grounds there. But then after a few years, we built another one just south of the track. Then we had that for about eight years of powwow there. Then when I left, the arbor was still up. When I came back after 5-6 years, it was gone. So I went to back in 2011. I went to Chief and Council to ask if I can get the powwows back. Back in 2011, they asked me to wait a year. So I went back at 2012 when they asked me to go look for a new place to build an arbor. So we drove around the sports grounds area to look for a new place for our powwow grounds. So we found that place where the powwow grounds are today. Thinking back of when our elders had to go out in the bush, out of the so that our Indian agent couldn't see. So that was the idea where the powwow grounds are now today. So so the Indian agent wouldn't see. So that was the idea of that. This was we built an arbor in 2013. That's when we started our new powwows again. So this year would be our 6th year there. Well, it report to Indian Affairs, like what we were doing. Like we had to, before our break, I mentioned that back in the day when the agent was living on reserve, took after what we were doing or what we couldn't do. I had the opportunity of going with my dad to go and sell wood in Kinisno on a sleigh, horse team and sleigh. But before we had to leave the reserve, we had to stop in at the Indian agent to get a permit to go and do this. We had to get a permit to get off the reserve to do business or just to go to town. Well, that was mainly his job, just to control us here. I don't know what. No, I was pretty small then too, but I knew he was there. Well, they were employed by Indian Affairs, and he was given job description, I guess, of what to watch for, like gatherings, like I mentioned, gatherings. We couldn't have those in public. There's a lot of other things that Indians couldn't do that would jeopardize us, I guess, in a way that we just couldn't do a lot of things. We just had to stick within the boundaries of the reserve and behave, I guess. Pretty much. I don't remember that. I was too young back then. But after I left, went to residential school and came back, he was gone. Okay. So we were more free to do. We'd leave the reserve and go out and just whatever we want to do. Well, not way back then. Like, we never had anything to do with what's happening in the States, yeah. But the different prime ministers that we lived through, you know, had some of them didn't mention Indians in their speeches or whatever. Even our premiers, you know, they never mentioned us in their speeches. I don't know if they work with us or not. Even way back then, you know, there wasn't that much. Like I never had no interest in what was happening in the States, and I was too young to know what was going on in Canada. But I know the different premiers or prime ministers we come through. It is, yeah, it is. Like long time ago, there was none of that. There was none of that. There was no phones, no, well, television. Maybe if you're lucky to have one, you just listen to the news. But today, you know, there's all this stuff like cells and then Facebook and all that. You know, we never had that way back then. It's good we have those today because, you know, you know what's happening all over the world. I have Facebook, yeah. Well, my son put it on my computer for me. You know, otherwise, I wouldn't have had it. And I only use it just to converse with Facebook friends, tell stories. And you know, I tell stories on Facebook, yeah. Like how I grew up and where I grew up and what I done when I grew up and all that. And you know, way back stories. That's what I just use it for. Whatever bad stuff, I don't read. I just skip through them. Well, I share stories about my growing up on my dad's trap line, you know, and all the things that we done there. Well, in Hudson Bay, North Hudson Bay, my dad had his cabin close to the Otaskewin Highway, leading from Hudson Bay to the Paw. And my grandfather had his cabin by the railroad tracks, same tracks that comes from Hudson Bay to the Paw. So I lived at both cabins in different times. In the summer, it'd be at my grandparents' cabin, and during the winter time, during Christmas holidays, we'd go to my dad's trap line. Like I said before, I never seen them during the day. Like I'd be sleeping when I go out, and I'd be sleeping when I get back. So you're out all day trapping. But we had things to do during the day. We'd have a dog that would pull us on a toboggan and walk around in my grandpa's snowshoes, and I had my own little trap line along the tracks. We only had one trap, and that's the only thing I trapped was my mitt. So I did my trapping. And my granny, he'd make me another kind of trap. A long string attached to a stick, which they kind of board leaning against it to trap chickadees, yeah. And she'd cook those chickadees for me to eat. You know, little things like that to do in the bush. Then in the springtime, like around February, March, when it was getting warm, the sap will flow from maple trees. And my grandpa, I go and help my grandpa gather these sap to make maple sugar. So that was part of trap line life, I guess. Far as I know, I watched my granny make it. She'd boil it. She'd boil the syrup, and let it harden, and into a flat pan, and that's it, maple sugar. They have those programs going on at the school. Like sometimes cultural days, they have those moccasin making, and like at the school they have program there for girls making ribbon skirts. And I can't see why the boys can get in there and make ribbon shirts and moccasins and drums, yeah, and make hand drums and all kinds of stuff that are made for the youth to keep them busy. Yeah. Well, reconciliation, I have to question that because, you know, what is it? Like, is it working? Like when I got that, what do you call it, compensation, or they call it residential school money and all that. When I got that, and I thought it was over. Like, that's the one thing I never did and never will talk about again. Like, even if I talk about it today, it still hurts, yeah. Because it's so instilled in our brain, like 8 years of that, you know. You don't forget. Not really, because we have people, like we use people through death, and we gain some by birth, and yet we have people going off to reserve for work, education, and, you know, I think it just balances out. Well, it's nice to have power and running water, you know. Like long ago, there was none of that, you know. There was just living by coal oil lamp, like I said, and wood stoves. And now you can boil water just plugging in a kettle, and light. It's nice, and our housing is better than what it was before. Some of them have basements, which is nice, running water and washer and dryer, things like that. Well, I think we're doing good the way we are. Like they talked about the reserve being a municipality. I guess it would have been if long ago the elders didn't want the highway going through our reserve. Otherwise, it would have been a municipality by now. I think it's good the way it is. Well, during my when I mentioned when after I got married, I traveled all over the reserve, working different jobs, not high-paying jobs, you know, because my education was with a grade 11. I imagine if I had in grade 12, I would have had better jobs. Maybe I would have just stayed home and work, but there was, you know, like a lot of our graduates are just staying on reserve. You know, they're scared to go out and work or get higher education. It is, yeah. It's always been important. Like I've seen lawyers. We have teachers, we have nurses. You know, and I don't know what other kind of professions are there for our people out there. But yeah, I think education is very important. Well, I think it's like a lot of young people ask how we used to live. Like I can't answer. Like you asked about dress. Dress has always been the same. We didn't live far back that we wore buckskin clothing and all that. Yeah, we regular clothes. So I remember. And I think it's important to know the kids to know, you know, how hard it was to live with no power, no running water, but how we survived. either in the on the reserve or out in the trap lines. How survival was out there. Like, that's the questions they ask. And I'm sure a lot of elders have different stories. Some didn't go on the trap lines, some stayed on reserve. So, and there's trap lines in Hudson Bay, there's trap lines across the river. Not everybody lived on trap lines, so some elders will have different views on that. Well, at one time we talked. There was a plan for a park in a sports grounds area where they'd have a golf course and trail riding and different what a park has. And they talked about having our own mall, our own little mall in the reserve here. Talked about those. And then one time we had our own farm. We farmed some of our lands, not all of it, but I like to see us farming all our lands. And bring more, keep the money within the reserve, so we can have more things coming up, more jobs, more maybe small businesses. Well, a few years back we had a pipe ceremony by the river where the dam was supposed to be built. Then we have that mining across the river that could someday be an open pit mine. That's the only two things that that would help us quite a bit. Well, in a negative way, like our livelihood was mostly hunting, trapping, and fishing, and gathering. Just to want to have go camping out there and pick blueberries and all that would be lost if that open pit mine. It's lost already. Like we can't go and hunt across there because most of our roads are all blocked off. And on a positive way, if the dam was built, we can cross the dam and go pick berries instead of going across the river by boat or going all the way around by the by the bridge. Just go cut across that. It'll be faster. But the mine, like I said, kind of affected our trapping. Well, in a faster way, I guess. Like you mentioned skidos there. That'll be faster than, like, we never had dog teams on the reserve. I haven't seen any dog teams like the Eskimos do, or up north, further up north, they use dog teams to go hunting. Skidos. Faster, sir, but I don't know. Well, we have our powwows, 3 days for that, and our culture days. I think there's 3 days for that. And the school hosts winter festival, different types of like rabbit snaring, and the trappers do their thing there. A little bit of culture there and a little bit of culture here and there. But most of our culture is through our powwows and cultural days. So we have those. Yeah, I'll continue sharing my stories on Facebook.
Okay.
Just for entertainment, maybe a little bit of history. But what I like to say is to our youth, like I said, education will always be important. When I was young, I was told that if I don't get an education, I'll be digging ditches for the rest of my life with a pick and shovel. So, you know, tell that to our youth nowadays, you know, maybe they'll pick up and start learning. I was at the school for a week, sitting in different classrooms, looking at students, helping the teacher, TAs, and I look at these younger students. They're smart, but you know they're a little slow at doing their work. They just need a little pushing. They're smart, and these older kids, you know, they should be role models for these younger kids at school. And I didn't see any of that role modeling. I don't know how they live at home. And you know, they should be role models for the younger students. And and I'm stuck on this education. It's important. It will always be important. And you know, like I said, we have a lot of teachers, a lot of nurses. I met a lot of Indian nurses, lawyers. You know, education is important. Thanks.